For ages, philosophers have argued that there is only one feature that determines whether an action is morally right or wrong. For instance, according to utilitarianism, happiness is the only important feature, and everything else is a means to that end. But wouldn't you say that's overly reductive? It seems as though we value other things for their own sake, not just for the happiness they bring us. So instead of this type of moral monism, why not endorse a plurality of principles to guide us through life? In this episode, we will investigate the moral philosophy of W.D. Ross and his approach to moral pluralism. Probably the reason why philosophers have been focusing on moral monism is that when you accept more than one principle, you immediately have to tackle the problem of how to respond to a conflict between these principles. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you have promised a friend that you will go to a Taylor Swift concert together, and while you're driving towards your friend's house to pick her up, you see a man by the road trying to fix his car engine, which is smoking. If you stop to help the man, you know that you will miss the concert and disappoint your friend. So here we have two conflicting duties. The duty to help others in need and the duty to keep promises. A utilitarian solves this issue by simply asking which action will maximize happiness. But now we are pluralists, and we have accepted that both of these duties are principles that we should follow. But we cannot do both, so how should we respond? A simple way to solve this issue is to introduce lexical ranking between the duties. For instance, one could say that the duty to keep promises is more important, hence you should simply drive past the person in need and instead keep the promise. But that solution has its problems. Let's say that instead of the man trying to fix his smoking engine, he's lying on the ground unconscious after a car crash. And you are the only one at the scene who can save his life. Should you really just drive past so you can keep your promise to your friend? W.D. Ross has a quite different approach, and in order to understand this, we need to talk about what he calls prima facie duties. To begin with, what does prima facie means? It is an old Latin expression commonly translated to at first sight or based on first impression. And Ross thought that we have 7 of these prima facie duties that are basic. And the point being is that they cannot be reduced to anything further, such as happiness. Here are the 7 basic prima facie duties. Duties of fidelity. Simply to keep one's promises and also not to tell lies. Duties of reparation. If one has done wrong in the past, one has a duty to make up for these past mistakes. Duties of gratitude. To pay back to a beneficiary for their actions. Duties of justice. To distribute benefits according to what people deserve. Duties of beneficence. Helping others improve their character or intelligence, or helping others reduce pain or increase pleasure. Duties of self-improvement. To improve one's own character and intelligence. Duties of non-maleficence. To avoid injuring others. There are more prima facie duties, but Ross claims that they can all be reduced to these basic 7. The name prima facie duties can be somewhat misleading. What Ross is really getting at is that if no other duty is in conflict, we should always act upon it. It is simply one morally relevant feature of actions that we should consider. And that brings me to what Ross refers to as duty proper, or actual duty. When I'm in a situation where two or more prima facie duties are in conflict, I need to balance these duties against each other. Whatever duty I decide to act upon, the duty that is most stringent in that situation, becomes the duty proper. It is the duty that I choose, all things considered. And this sort of makes sense, right? As we discovered with the Taylor Swift concert example, keeping my promise depends on whether the man off the road can't get his engine to function or if he's dying. The stringency of duties is dependent upon each situation. So now, here Ross writes, right acts can be distinguished from wrong acts only as being those which of all those possible for the agent in the circumstances have the greatest balance of prima facie rightness, in those respects in which they are prima facie right, over their prima facie wrongness, in those respects in which they are prima facie wrong. For the estimation of the comparative stringency of these prima facie obligations, no general rules can, so far as I can see, be laid down. Now, how can we know that these prima facie duties exist? How do we justify their existence? According to Ross, we simply don't need to. They are self-evident. This is part of what is sometimes called intuitionism. There are some things that are true simply by examining our intuitions. This, according to myself, is a bit worrisome. Can we really justify the existence of something as abstract as duties solely upon intuition alone? Maybe, but another issue is that of determinacy. Soon we will get into the next part of this series on ethics, which will be applied ethics, where we will discuss topics such as whether we should all become vegans, if euthanasia should be legal, or if masturbation is good or bad. But this theory itself does not really give a clear yes or no answer to any of these, since the actual duty depends upon every situation. But then again, some might consider this lack of rigidness a perk. And Ross has actually provided us with these 7 prima facie duties, so he has at least described the important features that make an action good or bad, or right or wrong.